students, today we are going to study the chapter Nelson Mandela Long Walk to Freedom. Okay, this has been written by Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. Okay, so before we go to the chapter, let's understand a little bit about the chapter first. Okay, Long Walk to Freedom, the autobiography of Nelson Mandela. Okay, so this chapter has been taken from this book. Okay, this is the book. This is the autobiography of Nelson Mandela, and the chapter is one extract from this book. Okay, first let's talk about Nelson Mandela. So he was born on 18 July 1918 and he died on 5 December 2013. He was a South African anti-apartheid revolutionary, political leader and philanthropist who served as President of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. He was the country's first black head of state and the first elected in a fully representative democratic election. So it was a great achievement. Okay. His government focused on dismantling the legacy of apartheid by tackling institutionalized racism and fostering racial reconciliation. Ideologically an African nationalist and socialist, he served as the president of the African National Congress Party from 1991 to 1997. I would like to mention here that this information I have taken from Wikipedia. Okay, so now let's come to this word. Let's talk about apartheid first before we go to the chapter. So this chapter actually refers to apartheid as an extraordinary human suffering. Okay, so let's see what apartheid is. Apartheid was a political and social system in South Africa during the era of white minority rule. It enforced racial discrimination against non-whites, mainly focused on skin color and facial features. This existed in the 20th century from 1948 until the early 1990s. Okay, so and how was this system eradicated? Because of the efforts of Nelson Mandela and people like him. Okay, so apartheid, you have understood now, it was practiced in South Africa and it was a racial discrimination based on color. So people who were non-whites, they were discriminated against by the white minority. Alright, so let's go to the chapter. Now this is the chapter. Okay, so there is first, it starts with an extract from the BBC of a news item, okay, on the 10th May 1994. Why 10th May 1994? Because it was the day of the inauguration of the government. Okay, on this day only he took the oath. Okay, so this is the extract that you will read, the news report. I will read out the news report for you. Okay, Nelson Mandela has become South Africa's first black president after more than 3 centuries of white rule. Mr. Mandela's African National Congress ANC party won 252 of the 400 seats in the first democratic elections of South Africa's history. The inauguration ceremony took place in the Union Buildings Amphitheatre in Pretoria today, attended by politicians and dignitaries from more than 140 countries around the world. Never again this beautiful land will experience. I'm sorry, my dear children, I will read again. Never again will this beautiful land experience the oppression of one by another, said Nelson Mandela in his address. Jubilant scenes on the streets of Pretoria followed the ceremony with blacks, whites, and colors celebrating together. More than 1 lakh South African men, women, and children of all races sang and danced with joy. Okay, so this is the scene as captured by a news report. Okay, so Nelson Mandela has now, he has captured, and it was, he says that it was the rainbow gathering of different colors, and I will underline this thing. Okay, some important lines I'm going to underline for you. So, for decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy, and now it was the site of a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first non-racial government. Alright, so this part is very, very important for us. Alright. He also refers to his daughter Jenani, who accompanied him on that day. Okay. So after this, he quotes his own speech that he because he's talking about that day in this particular extract, and then he quotes his speech from that day. So I will read that speech for you. Today, all of us do, by our presence here, confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. We, who were outlaws not so long ago, have today been given the rare privilege to be host to the nations of the world on our own soil. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come to take possession with the people of our country of what is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity. Okay, so he's saying that it is not a victory of just Africa or Nelson Mandela, but it is a victory of whole humanity. It is a victory for the whole of the humanity, because the human dignity has been restored. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discriminations. Okay, so he's saying that his freedom is not complete, emancipation is not complete, because now this country needs to be liberated from bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. Never, never, never again. This line is also in the BBC News report. Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. Okay, so he's using shall. Just understand this. Shall means definitely not. Okay, shall is a certainty. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. After that, he refers to the military forces and how they pledge their loyalty to the government. Okay. After, in the next paragraph, so he talks about the national anthem. Okay, so two national anthems and the vision of whites singing and blacks singing. So Africans of all colors singing both the new and old national anthems is a symbol of the new inclusiveness of South African society. Okay, so it's not that they have, when they have gained their freedom, they will not continue to hate others. They will not continue to hate the oppressor, people who oppressed them. They are going to be free from hatred of all kinds. Okay, so that's why this symbolized. There is a symbolic importance of singing two national anthems, old and new. It symbolizes the brotherhood and symbolizes that they have now they have become free now, and they are not going to continue the hatred. Okay. So on the day of inauguration, I was overwhelmed with a sense of history. So next he talks about all the people who have contributed to this freedom. He is not the only person who can be who is involved in this. He talks about historical importance and also a sense of history, that means people who were born before him and how they have contributed, how they have done their part. And then he says that he talks about the people who were born again before him: Oliver Tambo, Walter Sisulu, Chief Luthuli, Yusuf Dadu, Bram Fisher, Robert Sobukwe. Okay, pardon me if I might have pronounced some of the names wrong, but then these are the people whom he remembers. Okay, and he refers to them in plurals. Just see here. I will read the last paragraph. The policy of apartheid created a deep and lasting wound in my country and my people. All of us will spend many years, if not generations, recovering from that profound hurt. But the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect, and that was that it produced the Oliver Tambo's, Walter Sisulus, the Chief Luthulis, and Yusuf Dadus, the Bram Fishers, the Robert Subquis of our time, men of such extraordinary courage, wisdom, and generosity that their like may never be known again. Perhaps it requires such depths of oppression to create such heights of character. My country is rich in the minerals and gems that lie beneath its soil, but I have always known that its greatest wealth is its people, finer and truer than the purest diamonds. Okay, so he has the qualities of a great leader. Okay, so he talks about people of the land and how they are the purest diamonds, they are the real diamonds. Okay, all the minerals, etc., of all the resources that a country has, the human resource is the most important one. And he also is very very optimistic, and he has this ability to see the positive side of things. So he says that even though this oppression, this problem was faced by my country, but because of this only we came to know how great humans can be. So people like the ones he refers to, people like them, like Oliver Tambo, Walter Sisulu, etc., these people were there because of this oppression only. These people could rise. Okay, so this is very important. This is a silver lining in this whole situation. So you can see how he is able to see the good side of everything. It is from these comrades in the struggle that I learned the meaning of courage. Time and again I have seen men and women risk and give their lives for an idea. I have seen men stand up to attacks and torture without breaking, showing a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. And after that he talks about the difference between hatred and love, and how people must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love, for love comes more naturally to human heart than its opposite. So this is a very important line, and it's a very strange line. People must learn to hate. All of you will be wondering why people must learn to hate. They must learn to hate the oppression, they must learn to hate things which are against justice. Okay, so that, and that's why, when you love something, when you love kindness, when you love justice, you have to rise against injustice. Okay, so this is what he wants to say. And he also says that humans are essentially good people. He remembers one incident when he was in prison. Even in the grimmest times in prison, when my comrades and I were pushed to our limits, I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards, perhaps just for a second, but it was enough to reassure me and keep me going. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished. Okay, so you can see he's a very positive. His mindset is very positive. Okay, then next he talks about twin obligations of a person: obligations to his family, to his parents, and to his wife and children, and he has an obligation to his people, his community, his country. In a civil and human society, each man is able to fulfill those obligations according to his own inclinations and abilities. But in a country like South Africa, it was almost impossible for a man of my birth and color to fulfill both these obligations. Okay, so his next point is the twin obligations of everyone. Okay, and he says that because his country was under oppressive rule, he was not able to fulfill his one obligation, and that is the obligation towards his family. So he has sacrificed his obligation towards his family for his country. Okay, and that was only because of this extraordinary human disaster from which the country of South Africa was suffering. Okay, now again he talks about two kinds of freedom. Okay, when he was a child, he was free. He didn't know that he was, as a race, as a person belonging to a different race, he was not free. He realized that his freedom was an illusion. Okay, he realized that his freedom was an illusion, and he must strive to get the real freedom which was not there in his life till that point. Okay, so when I discovered as a young man that my freedom had already been taken from me, that I began to hunger for it. Okay, so he says that I was not born with a hunger to be free, because as a boy I was free in my own village, in my own community. But when I grew up, I realized that my freedom was an illusion. Okay, and I realized that my freedom had already been taken away because of my color. My destiny was already decided because I was born in a particular color. And then I slowly saw that not only was I not free, but my brothers and sisters were not free. I saw that it was not just my freedom that was curtailed, but the freedom of everyone who looked like I did. That is when I joined the African National Congress, and that is when the hunger for my own freedom became the greater hunger for freedom of my people. Okay, so in this manner he talks about two kinds of obligations and two kinds of freedom. And then he says that how my obligation towards my family was not fulfilled because I was not a free person. Okay, so I'll read this paragraph too. It was this desire for the freedom of my people to live their lives with dignity and self-respect that animated my life, that transformed a frightened young man into a bold one. Okay, that drove a law-abiding attorney to become a criminal, and that criminal in the courts, we must say, because it was according to the law of that time that he was a criminal. He was not a criminal. That turned out a family-loving husband into a man without a home. That forced a life-loving man to live like a monk. I am no more virtuous or self sacrificing than the next man, but I found that I could not even enjoy the poor and limited freedoms I was allowed when I knew my people were not free. Freedom is indivisible. The chains on any one of my people were the chains on all of them. The chains on my all of my people were the chains on me. Okay, and then at last he acknowledges that the oppressor is as much you know as much is suffering also. The oppressor is also a victim and a slave of their own narrow-mindedness and hatred. I knew that the oppressor must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. A man who takes away another man's freedom is a prisoner of hatred. He is locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow-mindedness. I am not truly free if I am taking away someone else's freedom, just as surely as I am not free when my freedom is taken away from me. The oppressed and the oppressor alike are robbed of their humanity. So this way this chapter has come to a conclusion. Okay, so we must understand, my dear children, that Nelson Mandela has beautifully narrated his life